Hi guys. Yes, I'm at home. Notice anything else? Ooh! God, that advert is annoying. So we are now, what is it, 7 months into lockdown? 8 months into lockdown? And they still haven't replaced some of the adverts? I swear, I spend more time looking at Eva Longaria's undyed hair than I've spent time talking to some of my friends. And I'm fucking sick of it, you know? When you couldn't go and get hair dye, then the people went and had grey hair or white hair. And was it the Sun, which is the worst newspaper on the planet, of course, which should be called We Hack Dead Kids' Phones, said that, she stunned and shocked people with her white hair revelation at the age of 45. Well, I hate to break it to you guys. People's hair goes white, goes grey. Sometimes it's quite sexy. Sometimes they're called a silver fox. Now, I'm not saying that to plug me, but there's a couple of white hairs in this beard. I haven't dyed them. Look, ooh, yeah, exactly. But more importantly, hi, how are you? Sorry about the wait, gang, but it's been 6 months since the lockdown started, and this is a message to myself in 6 months' time. I hope to God they've changed the fucking adverts. How are the kids? Well, they're okay. How's your mum? My mum's dead, mate. My mum's been dead 25 years. Thank you very much for asking the question and pretending that all the other times I asked my friends how they were, I was just fucking joking and I didn't mean it. Whereas now, obviously, we're in the middle of a global health emergency and I need my friends around me. I ask it like I actually mean it. I always meant how I always meant and always cared how my friends were when I asked how they were. Otherwise, I wouldn't fucking bother. And I know this sounds very much like an angry old man ranting at clouds, but I thought I was going to go and give you a quick distraction for a couple of minutes before we start episode 11 of my NOTCAST on the 5th of November 2020. And this episode is going to be it's a request from Brian on Twitter, who asked me kind of where do we start with Pink Floyd. So I'm going to talk about Pink Floyd and their early work for about 45 minutes, maybe longer. I don't know. Question time's on at 10:45, and I want to see people arguing about the American election. So we have a couple of things to before we start off. Firstly, Pink Floyd are basically 4 bands, all with the same name, that have changed dramatically over the years, from the Syd Barrett era of psychedelic rock through what I would call the more experimental period, which ended about 1972, through to Stadium Domination, which was 1973 to about 1983, which kind of veered towards, at the end, the Roger Waters moaning about his dead dad period. And then 1984 and onwards, which was when David Gilmour was in charge of the band, and they became a bigger, brighter proposition. Also, we're going to talk about this fucking beastie, Pink Floyd, the Early Years box set, which runs from 1965 to 1972. And I think we're going to use that really as a stepping off point into, talking about the band and who Pink Floyd are and were. So this box set was released in 2016. It's got 27 discs on it. And it was very, very expensive when it first came out. It had a retail price of over £350, which was staggeringly expensive. And I'm just going to give you a kind of like a tour and an unboxing guide as we go through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about their Pink Floyd as a band and their career in the early years from 1965 through to about 1972. I'm going to stop off and we're going to dip into the box set as we go along from time to time. One other thing I will point out, yes, I've had a shave. I had a bit of a trim today. I've been off work this week, and this week has been very much around catching up on stuff. So on Tuesday I went into London. On Monday, I sat around and watched an awful lot of Battlestar Galactica. Yesterday, Wednesday, what did I do on Wednesday? I can't remember. Whatever it was, I seemed staggeringly busy. But obviously, I wasn't that busy. I went into town. I picked up some prescriptions. I went and sorted out part of the bedroom. So we've been renovating one of the rooms in the house. We've been finally getting rid of the dead man's wallpaper. With all due respect to the previous owner of this house, that shade of pink was very in 1977. It's not in now. It was long overdue for an overhaul, and we took the wallpaper off, painted it a brighter, more reflective colour that's kind of like a pale grey veering to a white and a cream, and then rearranged how the room worked so that it had a lot more space in it and it felt more modern. And as opposed to, well, I've put a thing there, like I opened a book and there was a bookmark that was in there from 2008. So the last time I opened that book might have been 12 years ago. And sometimes you just need to take all your stuff out and start again and just think about it. Is that stuff still where it needs to be? Now, I'm not the kind of idiot that's going to go for productivity porn in the middle of a global lockdown, health emergency, presidential election, end of the world kind of situation. We have to do whatever we have to do in order to survive this catastrophe that is 2020. I think the Mayans maybe got 2012 and 2020 mixed up. Well, you just have to be kind to yourself, don't you? You have to forgive yourself. And you go, some days, I'm just going to have to sit here and eat that whole tub of ice cream and self-medicate. And then other days, you have to just knuckle down and get on with it, whatever it is. Now, this is a really strange thing, actually, because if we're living through the end of civilization or a change of civilization, people were still getting drunk in the Second World War. People were still falling in love in the Second World War. The world still turned, the sun still came up, all that stuff. So it's okay to just live your life while we go through all of this. And I'm living my life at the moment by talking to a camera phone and pretending that I'm monologuing in a pub to people. I have no idea who's out there. I mean, no, don't do that. No. Stop picking your nose. I can't see what you're doing. I have no idea. So I'm just talking to a camera, seeing my reflection and hoping that it's all going to work out. Yada, yada, yada. That's about 10 minutes of intro. Well, actually, it's 7 minutes, 20 seconds. Hi, how are you? How's your mum? How are the kids? Sorry about the weight gain. Who cares? And we're going to talk about Pink Floyd. So, starting off, Pink Floyd have effectively become two bands. One which, as they went along, made records and put out albums, and another one which became, to all intents and purposes, a practical industry to itself. So we're going to start off with the first record, which you will all know, or maybe you don't. It's Piper at the Gates of Dawn, which was released in 1967. This was recorded at Abbey Road the same time that the Beatles were recording. So the Beatles were in, I think, room 2, and Pink Floyd were in room 3. So on one hand, you had, I think they were recording Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band or the White Album, and next door Pink Floyd were recording this, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. That's a very good week by any studio's standards. So Piper at the Gates of Dawn is the debut album that the band released. It is 11 songs. It's a mixture of kind of blues, rock, but very generally it's almost all the band was led by Syd Barrett. At the time, had a very unusual approach to time signatures, to lyrics, to just the established conventions. It's almost like those songs that Syd wrote were almost transmissions from a human imitator that hadn't quite got it right, or if someone had given a Beatles album to an AI machine and went, write songs like this, but got them slightly wrong, but made them even better. So some very, very strange songs on the album. And I'm going to pick up this here, which is my vinyl copy of Piper at the Gates of Dawn, which also comes with the second album. This is called A Nice Pair. It was released in 1974. Comes in a gatefold sleeve. Very nice. Does seem to be showing its years, if I'm honest. What you will see on this is not the album itself. The Pink Floyd football team is on there. There was also a dentist who I think was called Mr. Fang, who objected to being included on the cover version of this, and thus this is not that. This is a nice pair. This is The Piper at the Gates of Dawn and A Source Full of Secrets, the two albums together. But let's have a quick look and see what's on that album there. Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? So we've got Astronomy Domine, which is still played to this day by David Gilmour and Pink Floyd on their latter tour. There's one whole song written by Roger Waters on his own, which is Take Up Thy Stethoscope and Walk. And every song bar two is written solely by Syd Barrett on Piper at the Gates of Dawn. And those other two songs are Power Torch, although I know that's not what it's called, and Interstellar Overdrive. Now, if you're following the Pink Floyd career as such, you'll start off, probably the first thing you'll hear, if you go their discography chronologically, is Astronomy Domine, which is a great song and was performed live even right up to the current day. But it wasn't the first thing that Pink Floyd recorded. The first thing that Pink Floyd recorded was a 1965 demo tape, which was on an EP that was secretly released for Record Store Day to make sure it hit the copyright extension laws in late 2015. It was recorded in 1965. It was released on a Record Store Day in about November 2015 to make sure that the band kept the copyright for it. And then after that, the next bit of recording that we know is this, which is the Interstellar Overdrive 12-inch, which was recorded in October 1966. 1966 wasn't a particularly great year for Pink Floyd. Did some touring. They recorded a soundtrack to a film called Tonight Let's All Make Love in London, and these were recorded in January 1967, so forget I said that, as well as Interstellar Overdrive. So, starting off, here's the early years box set, released in 2016. This thing weighs probably about 5 kilograms, which is about 10 pounds. It's heavy, man. It takes up a lot of space. It's a huge box thing. And kind of go a bit further into this. I should point out, I am a patient man. Patience is a virtue. It normally means you can get box sets a fuck of a lot cheaper if you wait a little while after it comes out. So let's go through the box set. The later years box set has 7 compendiums inside there, near enough one for each year, plus a wrap-up one at the end that's on there. So Piper at the Gates of Dawn was released in 1967. There was, hang on a second, there was a 2007 40th anniversary 3 CD edition of it here, which has the album in mono. It has the album in stereo. At the time, most bands were making versions in stereo and mono at the mixing stage, and disc 3 has an extra 10 songs on it, being various versions of Interstellar Overdrive, the A's and B's of the first 3 singles, which were Arnold Lane, See Emily Play, and I think Apples and Oranges, and then an extra 4 songs that had been out on various rare EPs. And the 2007 edition is effectively an expanded version of the album. Comes in at 3 discs. It's quite a nice little placeholder, not absolutely essential. And as we go into the early years box set, we will see that there is. Help if I put it right. So this box set of each of the 7 compendiums, each one of them is effectively a book, which has 1 or 2 audio CDs in it. Also has a Blu-ray and a DVD, featuring a lot of visual material from the time. Some photographs, and somewhere in here there is the track listing. So, for example, this one, which covers 1965 to 1967, effectively the main part of the Syd Barrett era, has some recordings from 1965 on. It's got a number of single A-sides. It's got some alternate mixes which were unissued. It's got Vegetable Man and Scream Thy Last Scream, which were Syd Barrett's last two songs. This one's also got a CD, Live in Stockholm, which was recorded without the vocals, and it's got a track called John Latham. On me, been a very long day. Versions 1 to 9 of John Latham, which I have no memory of whatsoever. The DVD and Blu-ray is more interesting, but it's little bits of TV appearances. The whole thing runs for an hour. It's not the type of stuff that you're going to be watching very often. And so there's also some memorabilia in here. So there's a booklet, there's a flyer, I think, for Games for May, which was a show at the Queen Elizabeth Hall. Sheet music for, I think, Arnold Lane is there. Another few flyers. Now each one of these compendium books has been released separately for about £30 each. If you don't want to, can't afford to, not that bothered about spending 300 something pounds on a box set, don't bother buy the individual compendiums, because effectively what you're doing is, you're getting most of the guts of it, what really matters. So that's the 1965 to 1967 disc. And I think what was, Piper at the Gates of Dawn is very much, it's a couple of bootlegs, by the way, from the Sid era, but Piper at the Gates of Dawn is very much a classic of its genre. Its genre is a very kind of British psychedelic pop stroke rock from 1967. It's, absolutely essential listening if you like that type of stuff. It's a lot lighter, it's a lot fluffier, it's a lot brighter than a lot of their material that would happen in future. Now the second album is A Saucerful of Secrets, which again I have here on CD, and again the version of A Saucerful of Secrets which I have on vinyl comes in the nice pair double album set. This was also reissued in a mono mix last year, I think, for Record Store Day. Not heard it, not that bothered, to be honest. But this is the album where there was a 5-piece Pink Floyd. So there's a 5-piece Pink Floyd was when Syd Barrett had started to withdraw from the pressures of being a musician. He apparently was taking a lot of drugs. I wasn't there at the time. I wasn't even a glint in my mum or dad's eye, so I can't comment. But he was very, very much kind of almost made it like a mentally he made a dissociative break from the reality that he lived in, and he wasn't really participating in anything but the most basic of terms around recording sessions, live performances. And the band decided that they were going to go and fill out their lineup. So coffee break, always important. So of the lineup that they had a 5-piece lineup. So there was Syd Barrett, Nick Mason, Richard Wright, or Rick Wright, Roger Waters, and then they brought in David Gilmour to play guitar and vocals as well to complement Syd. And I think maybe to take a bit of the pressure off Syd. They played about 5-6 shows. There's one photo session where they appeared together, which I think was the promotional film for, I think it might be Apples and Oranges, and they were all dressed up in aviator gear, and they went to an aerodrome. So at that point, the band at one point didn't pick up Syd to go to a show. They performed as a 4-piece, and that was the first time that the four-piece version of Pink Floyd with David Gilmour performed, and Syd was effectively almost made redundant from his own band. Completely understand why they did it. In retrospect, might be seen as a bit harsh to just go, well, I'm just not going to pick him up and take him to work today because he's not very good at it. But in their defence, I think it was the 60s. People were very different, perhaps less forgiving, less understanding. And when you're given what feels like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, sometimes you take it, whether that's a good or a bad thing. This is the second of the compendium sets that goes with it. So we've got The Sauce Full of Secrets, which has got, I think, Sid on one or two songs. I think Jug Band Blues, and I think he plays guitar on Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun as well. And the rest of the album has David Gilmour on guitar. David also plays on Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun. So that's the only recorded evidence, I think, Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun of the 5-piece Pink Floyd, which was obviously this lineup of the band here. So Nick with a fabulous moustache. I think that's Roger being very grumpy. Rick, David with a full head of hair. No, that's Sid. That's David. I'm looking at this back to front, by the way, on my phone screen. So there you go. So disc 1 of the early years compendium for 1968. Again, sold separately. Features single recordings of 4 songs, 2 previously unreleased numbers called Song 1. Again, no memory of that. Roger's Boogie, a BBC radio session, and another BBC radio session, which made all of the bootlegs redundant. The DVD and Blu-ray, by the way, has an assortment of live songs, mostly recorded in France and Belgium and Italy, for TV shows and things like that. It doesn't give you a flavour for what the band was like. One part of the DVD is a 22-minute black and white show where David and Rick mime to Sid's vocals, which is pre-recorded, which was a little strange to watch. And the songs aren't complete. There's another handbill for a show. Another handbill. Again, pre-production. No idea what that is. Presumably it was a flyer or something from the 60s. I'm sure I would have had a wonderful time in the 60s had I been a teenager. Although, knowing my luck, I probably would have been in suburban Birmingham, getting really bloody grumpy that I wasn't able to go to clubs like UFO and wear a shirt that had more colours than any human being could actually see. Yeah, so if you're also a fan of this period of Pink Floyd, which is A Saucer Full of Secrets and Piper at the Gates of Dawn and Syd Barrett, there are a number of compilation options to pick up all of the singles. This is perhaps the most obvious of them. This is called Masters of Rock. This is only available on vinyl. It's not been issued on CD. If you're into collecting old vinyl, this is the compilation to get. It's got a size or so. It's got 6 songs which aren't on Piper at the Gates of Dawn or on Saucer Full of Secrets, which is the A's and B's basically of the first 6 singles. And it well, this was released in 1970, around about the time of Atom Heart Mother. I don't think this was released in the UK. I think it was released in Germany and in the Netherlands and Belgium as well. And it's got some, explanatory text on there. You can probably pick this one up for about £15-20 if you're into it. If you don't have that option, there is also the budget price compilation called Relics, which does a similar job and also has 6 or so, the same 6 or so single only tracks on it. And Relics came in a terrible sleeve, which I'm not sure I've got in here actually. I know I've got it somewhere. Too many records. Whoever thought I'd say that, eh? So here's Relics. That cover was designed by Nick Mason. It was also one of the most popular selling Pink Floyd albums on the grounds that it was budget priced when it was released. And if you are cost conscious and on pocket money like I was, you bought what you could afford, not always what you wanted, and you made that investment every week. I had £6 pocket money a week when I was growing up, and I would buy one album, because in those days vinyl albums were £5 ish, £6. You pick up a second hand one for about £3. And you had to make that, you really had to sweat that investment. So I bought 45 minutes of music every week, maybe a couple of singles when they'd fallen out of the charts. And I knew all the retailers in my local area. So, for example, I knew that Hobday's put out their X-chart stock on a Monday morning. If I was free on a Monday morning, I'd walk down there knowing if I got there about 10:30, 11 o'clock, I had the run of all the X-chart singles, which were 99p, as opposed to £3.49. And that's 99p for the 12-inch, or 49p for the 7-inch. And it'd be the first thing I do, because as soon as something comes out of the charts, I could buy it. And instead of paying £1.49, £1.99 for the 7-inch, I could get 4 7-inches. The only thing is, I'd just be about 2 weeks behind the rest of culture. I could live with that. So, if you were younger, you bought relics, you got all of the non-album singles, with a couple of exceptions, and, that covered up most of it. Pink Floyd had a kind of like a crisis of confidence creatively after Sid had left, and as David was bedding into the band. They had a period of time very similar to Suede, I think, where they were able to tour and play live on the back of songs that had been written in the main part with an absent member. So they were able to build a working relationship on the road without the pressure to suddenly come up with new material. And the band took a different approach. So traditionally, you would think, well, how would you get round releasing a new album with a new guitarist, knowing that your previous guitarist, Sid, was well known for being absolutely brilliant? This is how they solved it. This is a soundtrack album to a film called More, which, although it is on the box set, I have not seen because I don't have 2 hours to watch a film like that. Effectively, the band wrote and recorded a whole bunch of new songs, and then they turned it into a film soundtrack and got a payment of an outright load of money, and then got to promote the songs on the film. This was where Roger Waters started to become quite dominant in terms of writing. So he wrote on his own. He wrote 5 songs on this album. He co-wrote another 5 songs with the rest of the band. And there's one song which is Up the Khyber, which Roger didn't write or didn't have a part in. Also a Spanish piece, which is the first solo credited David Gilmour composition. No memory of that. But there's a couple of great songs on here. There's a couple of not so great songs on here. Green is the Colour is particularly good. Cymbeline is particularly good. Even though Cymbeline was sung by Rick, so a lot of people think of it as a Rick song. It was written by Roger Waters. And there's the Nile song as well, which Guy Pratt, who played bass for Pink Floyd in the latter period, always wanted Pink Floyd to play the Nile song live, and David Gilmour always kind of declined the offer. I think he described Guy as an angry little puppy one day around that. But Guy got to sing that song at some other point. So this is the soundtrack to the film More. It's the 3rd Pink Floyd album. It is not the best place to start as an introduction. If you like whimsy, go for Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Definitely don't go for More. And 1969 is also covered on this, but also on another release by the band, which was Ummagumma. Now, apparently, Ummagumma is slang for sex. I wouldn't know. This album is effectively almost the sound of a desperate contractual obligation. One part of it is a live album recorded at Mother's in Birmingham, which, by the way, I think is now a shop, and also recorded at the Manchester College of Commerce in June 1969. So it's a live album from peak Pink Floyd period, 1969. Sounds fantastic, actually. Very, very well recorded. Great live album, worth the price of admission. The studio album that comes with it, by the way, which is here, is effectively 4 solo EPs by each member of the band. that's somehow been stuck together to try and pass itself off as a new Pink Floyd record. But the band didn't have the songs, so they were basically bullshitting in the studio and making it up as they go along. Now there's Sisyphus, which was written by Rick Wright. The second and third song is by Roger Waters. One is Grantchester Meadows, which is a lovely, gentle acoustic ballad. The other one has both the unenviable title as the worst song released by Pink Floyd in their lifetime, as well as the one with the most unwieldy title, which is several species of small furry animals gathered together in a cave and grooving with a pict. You fucking what, mate? It's awful. It's various kind of animal noises sped up and slowed down and arranged into some form of sound collage that no doubt interested the architectural mind of a kid who had half a side of a solo album to fill and had no ideas but had drugs and money. It's terrible. Side 4 of Ummagumma is 3 songs by David Gilmour called The Narrow Way, parts 1 to 3, and 3 tracks by Nick Mason called The Grand Visor's Garden Party, Entrance, Entertainment and Exit, which is effectively a drum solo. And Nick Mason, for all his abilities and affableness, is not Keith Moon. So Ummagumma is not the place to start. 1969 also brought what you will now see is what's called a dramatisation, which is the compendium, which is effectively, these are all effectively the expanded bonus discs that go with those albums, but these are rooted in a particular year as opposed to a particular album, because the band were working so fast, so frequently, and so variably that to attach a song to a particular album is a bit cheeky. So Dramatisation has 2 audio CDs, and it has a Blu-ray and a DVD in there. So let's quickly do a review of. So CD 1 is alternative versions from the More soundtrack, a BBC radio session, and live at the Amsterdam Paradiso on the 9th of August 1969. Of the alternate versions that are on here, there is a track that's labelled Seabirds. The original master of Seabirds has been lost, so the only place that you can hear the genuine track called Seabirds by Pink Floyd is on the DVD of the film More, where it is covered in dialogue. The track that's listed on here as Seabirds is actually something else that they've mistitled. Now on the Blu-ray, or more correctly on the CD too, we've also got a live in-concert performance of what turned out to be an abandoned album by Pink Floyd, which is called The Man and the Journey, which is about 76 minutes or so, where they linked together some existing songs such as Grantchester Meadows, Biding My Time, Cymbeline, Green is the Colour, Careful with That Axe, Eugene, Power Torch, and a source full of secrets, and they kind of linked all of these songs together to create a suite which had something which kind of covered the man, the journey, and the journey between being a person and a man. Now the show, by the way, at Amsterdam, which became the Man and the Journey, was heavily bootlegged. Here's a CD of the same show, which has not been digitally remastered. Doesn't sound amazing. But there you are. On the DVD and Blu-ray, we have a 20-minute session for Paris, January 1969, some rehearsals for The Man and the Journey, and a show at, let's think, Belgium, where Frank Zappa joined on guitar. And this stuff, all of the audio-visual stuff on this has been very, very well presented and put back together and recreated. I've gone through and scanned, gazillions of lines of data and information and spruced it up and taken out fingerprints and hairlines and specks of dirt and gone through all of that. So this is as good as the stuff will probably ever look. And again, there's another explanatory booklet that goes in there. So that takes us to the end of the 60s, near enough. Again, Pink Floyd, at this point, being very prolific, and sometimes when an artist is younger, they do a lot of work. They don't have the time to think and to whine and to mope about, and they just kind of just do the stuff, and they stick the stuff out, and then they're not particularly rich or particularly well off, but they're giving it a crack, and that's pretty much the best that you can hope for sometimes. So this is the CD edition of Ummagumma. Comes on 2 CDs. What you will note, by the way, is that if you look there, so there's one picture, then you go, it's a bit bigger, and there's another one, and there's another one, and there's another one, and it's like almost like dealing with an endless hall of mirrors. Okay, so at this point, I think Pink Floyd were kind of scrabbling around trying to work out who they were, what type of songs they were going to write, where they were going to go, and try and keep the money coming in. And so we have Relics, which was a kind of like a placeholder at the time, which was about 50 minutes long. We're into 1970 now. 1970 is the year of Atom Heart Mother. An iconic cow there. I could have bought you a plastic cow at the Pink Floyd exhibition. I decided to go for the plastic pig instead. And Atom Heart Mother is a good album. It has the second worst track that Pink Floyd ever released on, which is called Alan's Psychedelic Breakfast, which is not that you can necessarily make it out there. Alan's Psychedelic Breakfast is crap. It's the sound of Alan, the band's Rosie, walking in and around his house, or a house, and making breakfast. So you get the lovely sound of bacon frying on a frying pan. Terrible song. Always skipped it. Never heard it apart from the first time I ever listened to it. I think the first time I ever heard Alan's Psychedelic Breakfast, the look on my face was pretty much like a dog that had been shown a card trick, or maybe a cat trying to learn chess. It was very much kind of what. So that was bollocks. If you like that period of the band, Atom Heart Mother, I'd recommend picking up music from The Body by Roger Waters and Ron Geeson. And this has a number of solo songs recorded by Roger Waters, including one called Breathe, which is not, of course, the same song that later appeared on Dark Side of the Moon. It also has a secret Pink Floyd track on it called Give Birth to a Smile, which I always close my playlist of Atom Heart Mother with, because it was Roger Waters with his friends in Pink Floyd backing him, and effectively it's a Pink Floyd song that just got released under the Roger Waters solo name. Also in 1970, not only was Roger doing the soundtrack to The Body and Pink Floyd were doing Atom Heart Mother, they're also recording Zabriskie Point, although maybe this was recorded in 1969. According to the copyright notice on this LP, it was 1970. And at that point, the band would effectively go into the studio, record lots of material, and then, for example, there's 3 Pink Floyd songs on this album, which are Heartbeat Pigmeat, which is, I think, an early version of Careful with That Axe. No, it isn't actually, it's something else. There's Crumbling Land, and then there's Come In Number 51, Your Time Is Up, which is a variation of Careful with That Axe, Eugene, a re-recording of it. In 1997, it was reissued, and it had an extra 4 Pink Floyd songs on the bonus discs, being Country Song, Unknown Song, Love Scene version 6 and Love Scene version 4. I wish they'd think of more interesting titles, because you look at those titles, and I don't particularly feel like, oh God, I really, really want to hear what Love Scene version 4 sounds like. No, I don't, actually. If you put as much imagination into that song title, as I suspect you have, that's not very interesting. Okay, here's a recording of the Montreux Jazz Festival 1969 picture disc bootleg LP, which I picked up for £10. Okay, so 1970 was a busy year. You had Atom Heart Mother, you had Zabriskie Point, you had the Body soundtrack. You also had what turned out to be this compendium disc here, which just came out in the early years, which is called Deviation, and that has I think 2 CDs in it, and I think it's got two DVDs and a Blu-ray. Now this is almost interesting actually. So we have got on the CD, we have a live version of Atom Heart Mother in Montreux, which was on there. We have a BBC radio session, which I think was recorded at the Paris Theatre in London on the 16th of July 1970. And that session has the only live performance of If by Pink Floyd. It was later performed live by Roger Waters. CD 2 on this comes with 16 previously unissued soundtrack recordings for Zabriskie Point. So you've got 23 songs there from Zabriskie Point already, which comes to easily an hour. So in my mind, Zabriskie Point is a lost Pink Floyd album that really just needs to be put together and released in its own right, as opposed to 3 songs on a compilation LP, 4 songs on a reissue CD in 1997, and then an extra 16 songs on a box set in 2016. There's also an early version of Atom Heart Mother. Now, Atom Heart Mother as a song was recorded by the band. There was an orchestra that was added. The orchestra was orchestrated by Ron Geesin, who worked with Roger on The Body. And Atom Heart Mother is a song that turns up, I think, 27 times on this box set in various configurations. So we've got DVD, we've got 2 DVDs, and we've got a Blu-ray. On the DVD, we have got an hour with Pink Floyd, which is an hour-long studio session for KQED in San Francisco in 1970. It's great live footage of the band performing in a studio. Absolutely. I mean, if you like the band, please do listen to it. It's really interesting. And the cats come in. We've also got on the DVD, we've got the original 4.0 quad mix of Atom Heart Mother, which was I think released in 1970. So a 4-speaker mix that was approved by the band at the time. DVD 2 on here has another hour-long live show, this time from the Pop du Festival des Saint-Tropez in France on the 8th of August 1970, which is 6 live songs. It's also got the band playing live in the studio, accompanying a ballet which was performed in front of them, and another version of Atom Heart Mother. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. There are 7 versions of Atom Heart Mother on this set alone. It's not that good a song to warrant being released 7 times on one set, but I guess that's what you do, is you put everything that you've got on there. So, what happened after Atom Heart Mother and Zabriskie Point? We had Medal. Now, Medal has a track on it called Echoes, which, if you like Pink Floyd, you'll know that song is the bollocks, putting it technically. Now, that, the gatefold sleeve, by the way, to Medal, is a close-up of an ear. I always thought it was a nose when I hadn't opened the gatefold. This is a 1970 Harvest Records edition of the album. It's pretty scratched, but you know what? I buy it because I like the music. And at the time I was buying these, I think I mentioned it before, is you could pick up vinyl albums dirt cheap. I mean, like ridiculously cheap. £2, £3, £4 each. And they were copies which clearly were both, original pressings and in pretty good condition. Although obviously when people were buying them in the 70s, they weren't necessarily thinking about, well, what's the resale value of this going to be like, and what's going to happen to this album in 2020, and is this album's going to appear on a YouTube channel, on the internet? What's YouTube? What's the internet? Yeah, all that stuff. So what I would say is, I think Metal is a great Pink Floyd album. You know, the band have really stepped into their stride of performing experimental rock, album-length songs. Really, really grown into their confidence. There was a wobble around the time of More and Ummagumma, and I think with Zabriskie Point and Atom Heart Mother, they started to move into being very fluent and very good at that, but they hadn't quite got the hang of it. So we've got, but by the time of Metal, they were clearly cooking on gas, I think is the technical term. So here continue, which is Reverberation, 1970, again available separately, not necessarily in the big box set. Has an early mix of echoes. It's got a BBC radio session. It's got the song Embryo, which the band never finally recorded in the studio. It's got a 26-minute live version of echoes on it. The DVD, oh, hang on, I'll mention that shortly. The DVD and the Blu-ray, perhaps not quite as much stuff as the previous year, but a number of TV appearances. 4 versions of Atom Heart Mother on this Blu-ray and DVD. Sorry to let you down. Total length of 68 minutes, plus a 4.0 quad mix of the track Echoes. Again, it comes with some memorabilia. It's very nice. It's very expensive. What you'll also find, by the way, is Metal in 5.1. So the Metal album was prepared and mixed for a 5-channel 5.1 stereo mix in about 2015, and as I understand it, David Gilmour and Roger Waters aren't friends.